What up, everyone? This is Brenton.
And Jenna.
This podcast is all about connecting with our Autumn family in a fun and different kind of way.
So turn down that CB, buckle up, and enjoy the show. It's going to be truckin' awesome.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for listening today. I'm joined by Jenna, and I also have Bev Rieks and Julie Andrich with me. And we are getting together today to talk about the beginning of Autumn Transport, kind of who we are, where we came from. So we brought in the founder and her daughter. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we are coming up 2 days away from what we call at Autumn Founders Day. April 14th, that's the day that we celebrate the birth of Autumn, which happened 43 years ago. Bev, can you believe 43 years?
Oh, it just flew by.
Time definitely does when you're having fun, right?
Yes,
That's what
for
they
sure.
say. So we're going to be celebrating that on Friday, and I wanted to get you both in the room just to talk about where Autumn came from, the story of, you know, the beginning of Autumn, and then we'll kind of explore a little bit about how we got to where we are today. So Bev, why don't you get us rolling? What happened 43 years ago? Actually, probably years before that as the discussion started to come up. How did the whole idea of Autumn start?
Well, I'm going to start before 43 years ago. We lived on a little hobby farm, and Lowell was an East Sider who knew nothing about farming, and when we bought the place, we were going to farm it enough to pay the taxes, and that was it. Well, in his entrepreneurial spirit, he ended up somehow renting, besides our little 75 acres, renting up to, 1 year was 1,200 acres. And so we had a lot of grain to haul. So while he was hauling our grain to market, he thought, well, you know, I think if I can do this for myself, I think we can do it for other people. And that's kind of how it all started.
Interesting. So you said that Lowell was an East Sider and that he had an entrepreneurial spirit. Is that the hardest word to say?
Yes.
I can never get that out clean. I don't know what the deal is. East Side. What is
St. Paul.
East Side St.
St.
Paul.
Paul. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you bought the farm. Where was that farm?
In Lake Elmo.
In Lake Elmo, which is a lot different looking today than it was then.
Very much.
Do you
But
still
have the farm.
You still have the farm?
Yes.
Awesome. So Lowell was your husband, and you guys kind of started this thing together.
Mm-hmm.
What other businesses was he into? What things did he start?
When this was before I met him, he had started a teenage nightclub because the dancing was really popular at that time. So he thought he would do that, and he had some battles with the band and the whole thing. Well, that lasted about 2 years, and that kind of folded. But it was an idea that he had that he wanted to pursue, and he did. So that was one. But he's always had that entrepreneurial spirit. When we lived in an apartment for a couple years before we bought the farm, he saw that you could, in an apartment building, there's lots of cars that need starting in the winter. So he got a generator, put it on the back of the truck, and made some extra money doing something like that. So there was always something, always something.
What is it like to be the daughter of a guy like that? Growing up with your dad, having crazy ideas, always trying to start something.
I don't know that I, experienced a lot of that as a kid, but growing up on the farm, having a dad that was a hard worker and no laziness on the farm whatsoever, and it's just my sister and I, so I got a lot of what would traditionally have been the boy jobs. So I learned to drive a tractor pretty early. Mom, was I 5 or 6?
Yeah, and
5 or 6
I
years
wasn't
old.
aware of it at the time.
But Dad needed to move a tractor from one of his rental fields home, and I'm sure Mom was with my little sister, so he threw me on a tractor. I think it was at 5 or 6 years old, and said, "Well, I'll follow you home."
Wow.
And I made it.
That sounds a lot like something my dad would have done back in the day. I can remember being in a few situations where he just said like, "Yep, I'll follow you. Go ahead." Or one time he wanted to get an old truck that had no engine, no power steering, just the cab basically that he thought he was going to fix up. And so he took his regular semi out to get it, hooked some chain to it, and towed it home with me in the thing, trying to steer it behind him as he was. And he said, don't worry, B, I'll slow down so you won't slide into me." And we made it, and like you made it home on the tractor.
That was the first time, but there was another time or two that I put the tractor and the hay wagon in the ditch twice in the same summer, and I think I was maybe 7 or 8, and that's how I earned my CB handle, Double Ditcher.
Double ditcher. Have you heard that one before, Jenna?
No, this is my first time hearing that nickname.
I have not heard that before. Double ditcher. Oh my word. So it was busy growing up. You were working hard on the farm. Your dad was farming and trucking, and thought, well, I can sell some of this grain. So how did those first few years progress?
Well, pretty fast, actually. There was never a dull moment. So fast forward, we ended up getting a couple more trucks. Well, let me go back to the start of it. I remember we were on our way to the bank to buy a couple of trucks and get this company going. And I said, well, what are we going to call it? And we came up with Harvest. So we were Harvest Trucking for a while.
Okay.
And then, how many years later was it?
I want to say it was 3 or 4 at the most.
Yeah. We were trading grain at the time, as well as Harvest States was trading grain, and we would get their contracts, and people would call and they say, no, which harvest is this? Well, we ended up changing our name to Autumn, and I think you came up with that name, Julie.
I don't remember.
Yeah, and so we could coexist with Harvest States in the same markets.
So that's where the name Autumn Transport came from. Double ditcher came up with that.
Yeah.
Julie, did you always envision yourself working for your dad and for Harvest/Autumn?
Never envisioned myself working in the office with my parents at the family business ever. I waitressed through high school and college, and when I graduated from college, got a job managing a pretty good-sized sports bar in downtown Minneapolis, and didn't really have an interest in trucking necessarily. And then Autumn, my dad had a temporary project that he wanted some help with, and it was with computers. And now I'm going to date myself a little bit because we just had gotten computers. And all the dispatchers back then used Rolodex to keep track of their drivers' numbers, their customer numbers, et cetera, or they had almost like a Franklin Planner book that they kept phone numbers in. And so my dad said, why don't you come in? You can come in on your off time, and I just need all of these phone numbers entered into this computer. So they set up a card table in dispatch, and I had to sit in the middle of all the guys who were my parents' age, maybe a hair younger, but twice my age for sure, and plugged in Act for Windows was the name of the software, plugged in all of their contacts. And I could hear them talking with such like problem solving and action. And one minute they're slamming the phone down and they're mad at a driver, and then they had to pick the phone back up and talk to Cargill or Pillsbury at the time, or Hormel. So the action in the room was interesting to me because I had spent a lot of time in action. A restaurant's very fast paced as well. Yeah. So I was interested in that, but it was my temp job, and I still had I didn't anticipate staying. And I think this is how it worked. Mom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he said, "Hey, would you ever want, we've never done this before, but we could really use a dispatch assistant. Would you be interested?" And I was kind of tired already of the late nights at the bar. All my days off were never the same day my friends had off. So I said, "Well, I'll give it a try." And I'll never forget this. He said, "You can quit anytime you want."
And you never did.
28 years later.
Wow.
Sometimes you wanted to, though.
Sometimes we all probably do, Bev.
Yes.
You mentioned a word that maybe we should define for our audience. Jenna, are you familiar with the Rolodex?
No.
We'll date Jenna a little bit as well. So it was just you and your sister.
Yep.
And I've heard it mentioned that Autumn kind of became like the brother, the third child in the family. Can you guys speak to that a little bit, either one of you?
Okay. So Harvest started, my parents' farmhouse had 3 bedrooms, and my sister and I got to each have our own room growing up. And when they started Harvest in 1980, I was 10, my sister was 8, and I had to move back in with my sister because they started it in my bedroom. And they had 3, and the house is a 1970s Rambler. The rooms weren't very big. They just didn't build big bedrooms back then. So they had 3 desks mashed into this little bedroom. I ended up having to bunk with my sister. And I think, did you run the business out of the house for 2 years?
1 year.
1 year. It felt like longer bunking with my sister. And then they moved to Hastings. So even when they moved the office to Hastings and then eventually Woodbury, at night, because my parents worked together and we were of school age, and I could really remember a lot of the conversations growing up, the dinner table was, "Julie, how was your day at school? Jill, how was your day at school? Here's what happened at Autumn today." And my sister and I intimately knew all of the employees, all like 3 to start, but it was family from the start.
Yeah.
And so Autumn that was the third kid at the dinner table. We talked about that just as much as we did our schoolwork or our sports or activities.
I think that family feel is something that's carried on 43 years later. The drivers that we have and the employees that we have, it really is. Autumn continues to be a family and takes care of one another as a family. I'm sure that's something that you're probably pretty proud of, Bev.
Very proud of, very proud of. You know, I've always said that you probably spend sometimes more time with your coworkers than you do with your actual family. And we wanted this to be a family, just like our home families. You know, a few few years into that, we did some kind of a promotional video for the wives of the drivers, because we wanted to emphasize the importance of their family's role in their occupation. And so we did a little kind of crazy, it's on VCR.
I
The
wonder if we
VCR
can,
tape.
Jenna, can we get a converter? We need to get that on YouTube, I think.
Yeah,
I
we can
think
pull
not.
that off.
I think not. But we really felt like their families are just as important as our family is here. So
Yeah. As a truck driver's kid, I know all about that and how he felt at work, and if he felt a part of that family, really made us feel better at home too, to be remembered. When you first started here, Jenna, did you pick up that family vibe?
Yeah, because, and I was gonna say, as a recruiter, you are a salesperson too, and so selling Autumn to drivers has never been so easy because we're family based. This is my first job in this industry, so I don't have anything to compare it to, but I've just heard horror stories about these companies that truly don't care about their drivers, and so being here and that being so easy makes me happy and makes me enjoy my job every day. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, family's big around here.
Yeah.
But it's not always perfect. no family is perfect, and not every day is great at home. Not every conversation around the dinner table is, hey, everyone's loving it. What are some of the early challenges that either one of you can remember? Maybe Bev, you could speak first, or Julie, about some of the challenges Autumn faced, bumps along the road, hurdles you had to overcome.
Well, I think initially it's just like any other startup business where you need money. You need to fit the right people in the right spots, and it's just the same as the startup. Get your bookkeeping down right, and making sure everybody gets paid on time, and all of that. It's the same kind of thing. So those are the little bumps. So
People are always bumps, no matter where you work or what you do. I think people are the greatest challenge, but even a greater reward at the end. So I think the watching my parents navigate staffing challenges, personality conflicts. My dad had a very strong type A Marine Corps personality and didn't really know how to turn that off. So watching them navigate relationships, mostly I would say in the office, because dad didn't dispatch, mom didn't dispatch, so their daily communication with the driver wasn't there, but there was plenty of action in the office. And I think, like, the rumor is we had phone books thrown one day and a number of door slams. So navigating the personality piece, I think, is always a challenge. But man, I think we've come a long, long way. Long, long way.
Yeah, people are always going to be your greatest strength and some of your greatest challenges. I remember your dad. How your dad hired me. I've been here 9.5 years, and I sat in this very room at this very table with Julie and Lowell, and had a chance to work with him. Lowell's been not with us for how long now?
since 2015.
2015. Yeah, he was a strong personality. I'd lie if I said I wasn't at all scared of him. Probably a little scared of him, but at the same time, he had a way of just also being very loving and warm in his own ways. He was the necessary nuisance, he called himself around the office. Yep, the NN. And every morning you could expect to see Lowell come walk down to dispatch, saying hi, finding out what's going on. Probably some question that didn't seem as loaded to you as it probably was about business and how it was going. Is you could tell the wheels were always turning. What ways do you think his personality, his leadership have shaped Autumn? And how do you see that legacy continuing?
I'll take that one to start. To have the guts to start a business, no matter what kind of business, not everybody has that kind of guts. So that vision, the no fear of failure, the confidence, and I don't know if he were here today, I don't know how he would answer this, but I think he faked it till he made it sometimes, but you'd never know it because he was confident in his chair, walking around, making eye contact, asking good questions. Half the time I got asked those questions over the years, I was praying I had the right answer and that I didn't fall down on something that I was supposed to be doing. But just that, the air of, I got this, I'm confident, we are going to do this, and that's easy to follow.
Yeah, it's attractive.
And if there was a mistake or something, a failure, he would say, okay, and choose another path. So, like Julie said, he just didn't want, he just wouldn't admit if that anything failed.
Lots of failures over the years here, but nothing that ever crushed the business, right? You're never going to make all the right decisions every single time. But to have, well, we got that over with. Now we're going to try something different. It was that same, I think that's entrepreneurial in and of itself. Well, that didn't work. let's try this. Well, we learned from this. Let's move on. Was awesome.
And that has continued on even in Lowell's absence here. There really is a spirit of, well, let's give it a try at Autumn, and if it doesn't work, we'll change directions. But I know in the liquid tank division, we are a very different division now than we were, well, not even 9 years ago, but just 4 or 5 years ago, where we've said, well, let's try hauling paint. Let's try hauling more non-as chem and not as much fats and liquids as we used to. And we've had some really great opportunities that have come because of that willingness to try. I think a lot of people can get stuck in a lane, say, I've only ever done this. This is all I ever want to do. I don't want to try anything different. And some people find success in that. But Autumn has that spirit of, oh, you want to try hauling that? Maybe we'll get a couple trailers in that business and we'll try that for a while. And if it doesn't work, we'll sell them off. And who knows how it's going to take off. I think that definitely is something that has persisted here.
I think that attitude too has, you see like one of the dispatchers with an idea or whatever, and it kind of gives the freedom for the rest to, oh, well, maybe I can do something different here in my area. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Coming from someone who never met Lowell too, one of the things I've heard about him is his sayings. So I do appreciate you guys all quoting him and kind of continuing to bring him into the building. Can we quote him a couple times? What are some of the funny ones that he would
I
throw
know the
in?
one that I remember the most, but maybe if you two want to share one first.
You go first.
Well, one of my favorites, and I've used this, and I've taught this to my own kids. I've told this to other people. Was his saying about sometimes you need to just pull out the garbage can, throw up in it, and make the call. Like there's some things in life that, yeah, we're scared and make me feel sick to my stomach, but you got to do it, and then you put it behind you. So I that's one that I
Nice.
remember. Yeah.
inch by inch, anything's a cinch.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Nice.
My favorite one, I say it all the time still, is people respect what you inspect, not what you expect. So your follow-up is much better than making an assumption that something's getting done. And that's not micromanagement. It's just inspecting. That includes catching somebody doing something right. It's not always a negative. But a lot of times when I was younger here and in my 20s and not that well versed in being a manager, certainly not very mature, he would say, well, what did you inspect? Or did you just expect they were going to get it done? Did you inspect? And then I said, well, do you think people really respect that? Or is that just me being a pain in the butt? And I think that saying still rings true.
Well, that's something that you've definitely picked up from your dad. I don't know if it was always in you or if he drilled it into you, but as someone who's had your expects been inspected, I know that he passed that along to you. I do respect you
No, thank you.
for it. Julie, you said you started here on your Rolodex project. Jenna, that was a little thing people kept on their desk with little cards, like business cards almost, and
Okay.
phone numbers. And you could flip through it when you needed to find the phone number.
Got it now.
Yeah, it's kind of like an iPhone.
I think we have one archived here someplace. I'll try find it.
I think we have about 40 years worth of time capsule archived upstairs. We should lay out like the history of Autumn in storage junk.
Agreed.
That'd be pretty fun to see. There's about 80 calculators up there, I think. They're as big as a small car nowadays. But Julie, from that day that you were doing that, then you can talk about, if you like, some of the other roles that you've had here, but you've sat in about every chair in the office.
Just about.
Which gives you a great perspective now as our CEO to understand what the different roles are and some of the pressures that go on those people. You've had to make tough calls to drivers. You've had to make calls to customers when something that was supposed to happen maybe isn't going to happen. What was it like going through that progression with your dad here as the owner's daughter? You know, how did people look at you? How did they treat you? Not to mention the fact that, like you said, you were in a room basically filled with men, and trucking has traditionally been a men's industry, and you've risen to be a strong female presence in that. Can you take us through that journey?
Sure. So I look back, so I was Max's assistant. That was who I was assigned to. And Max, I think it was my dad's age, and he was tough and didn't give me a pass for being the owner's kid. And if I got frustrated with Max in the first year, and I told Max this the day he retired from Autumn, I said, I can't count the number of times in the first year that I went in the bathroom and cried because you scared me. You were mean to me. The drivers are mean to me. This stinks. And if I ever once, and it might have been once, said something to my dad like, they're mean. He's like, go figure it out. Don't come crying to me. And he never had my back to my face. I think he always had my back behind my back, but never went in and said, you know, Julie gets preferential treatment. Julie gets this, nothing. It was none of that. And I had to earn my stripes with all of these guys over time. And I think that meant coming in first, stay until the end, never coming in late from lunch. Always tried to get back early from lunch because I didn't want to be shouted at because I was late or where you been, because they were tough. But at the same time, between the 2 or 3 that I worked under in the first 10 years, their toughness, I think, made me definitely a better person. I got a little thicker skin. I didn't worry so much about now what are people thinking about me. But I was still half their age most of the time. Excuse me, most of the time. And it was hard. I was the only girl in dispatch for probably my first 8 or 9 years. And then I got a gal my age as a partner in hoppers. And then we started having a little bit of fun. We could have some girl talk. But yeah, it was hard. It was hard, but worth it.
Interesting now that we have, how many female drivers?
We have 5.
So we have 5 female drivers as a part of our fleet, and our dispatch team has quite a few. There we have female dispatchers in logistics. We have them in pneumatics. We've had them in hoppers. So that balance, so to speak, has shifted, has changed. The industry is changing. More and more females, and I think Autumn has been a great place for female leadership and female talent to rise. Agreed. And obviously a big part of that goes back to the two of you. Bev, what was it like having Julie grow up not only at the farm and at home, but also in the office?
It wasn't that bad, actually.
I always laugh at the saying it wasn't that bad because it means it was bad, but it wasn't that bad. No, I know that's not what you mean.
You know, we were still able to have a family, our family unit. We were still able to step aside from the business part of it. And Julie worked a lot with Lowell in the office, and you know, unless they asked me for something, you know, they would know. They would have some issue, and I usually didn't interfere in that because that was business.
She's not here to defend herself, but it was mentioned earlier that there was another sister. If Autumn was the brother, there was another sister. Now, we know that she comes in and brings some amazing cookies. So shout out to Jill. I know you're listening. Your cookies are fantastic. But how did she avoid getting wrangled into this craziness?
As far as in the business?
Yeah.
Well, she probably would have had some part in it, but she has a special needs son, and takes a lot of her time, and so her path, you know, took her down a different path. Her life took her down a different path.
Well, I know I've I've met Jill quite a few times and her son, and she's a wonderful mother. And I kind of like that she's not busy working because then she can cook for us.
Right.
So, Jill, thank you again for that. Over 43 years, you're bound to have some turning points in a business. Times when you come to a fork in the road and you have to go right or left. Maybe you're on the edge of a cliff and it's like, we do something here or everything goes under. Are there any of those moments that either one of you would like to talk about where Autumn has really been faced with a critical turning point?
Well, I wouldn't say critical, but I think when Lowell came up with the idea of the lease purchase agreement, where we would buy vehicles where drivers would want to come to Autumn, but they didn't have a vehicle. So I think that that was really a turning point in the solidarity of the nature of our company and giving them an opportunity to do what they want to do.
I couldn't agree more on that. And I think while I was a kid when you started, I think a lot of your critical was the nature of why you started it. I don't recall, yes, you had really lean years at the very, very beginning, and there were months and months that you went without getting ever paid. Everybody else's paycheck had to clear first before mom or dad could try to cash theirs. So those were the lean times, but I don't recall, while I think things have been flat from time to time, I don't ever remember a critical negative, like a cliff, like you're asking about. We've definitely had flat years, slightly down years, but I give my parents a ton of credit for being the most financially responsible people on the planet. So they stuck more money into the business so that the business could continue to work. They didn't take any for themselves. So that helped us ride through some of those low points. I think a really positive turning point for Autumn in an explosive sort of way was when we got involved in the fracking in North Dakota, and we picked up a lot of sand in Wisconsin. We got involved in some fracking in Texas, and it really catapulted our truck count to a number that we never even imagined. And we only did that for a short period of time. I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years, bought a ton of brand new equipment, huge capital outlay of money to get those trailers in and in the system. And I think that kind of changed the trajectory of where we were going. It rapidly increased our pneumatic fleet. Tanks always keeping up, adding more, but that was the momentum change from being a 75 truck operation to 125 in pretty short order.
As I hear you guys talk and think about my time here, in where I used to work out, kind of that industry, you have a couple different mindsets in terms of fitness. You know, you have people who want to come in and like, I'm going to get fit, I'm going to get huge, and I want it really fast. And they get frustrated when they don't get the muscle they want really fast. And you see what some people do there is they'll turn to steroids, right? Something that can enhance things quickly. But typically that doesn't pay off for them. You know, you can overwork yourself going too fast and you get hurt. You put that chunk in your body and your body breaks down. Well, there's this other concept of like a continual upward trajectory toward a far horizon, if you can visualize that. Just that horizon, and it's way out there, but we're always going towards it and we're always slowly climbing. And so instead of that huge spike and then that huge drop, you just have a nice long progression. And I feel like that's really the mindset that has guided Autumn. It's not that we're afraid of anything. Like we said earlier, we're going to try things. If there's a good idea, if there's an opportunity, if something like the fracking opened up, yeah, we'll pump some money into it. We'll go after that. But at the same time, we don't build ourselves on this idea of anything like fast and fly up, and because we don't want that crash, right? It's what is going to be the best idea for our family, for our company, an upward trajectory towards a far horizon. Would you guys concur with that?
Totally, totally. And even when it was more than a few years that we were trading grain. We had one merchandiser, and from time to time we wondered, should we still be doing this? We were trying to facilitate our own trucks at the same time. But looking back, when the grain company was doing well, the trucking company didn't do well, and vice versa. So they were kind of holding each other through several years of that up and down, and not seeming like we had an upward trajectory. That's another hard word.
Yeah.
Trajectory. But looking back, you can see, well, that was a bridge. That was the bridge to get us through that time. So
I would add one more thing to the explosive growth of fracking. We never compromised our long-term relationships that got us to that day. So still holding on to and serving in the same fashion our longtime customers, that did not waver either. And I think that's really what's kept us on that long view to the horizon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we say here that we have 4 core values: integrity, service, family, and leadership. And we've talked a lot about the family feel. And I think the leadership piece is that idea that anybody in this building is a leader. They have the opportunity to make a choice, to bring people along with them to something positive, to grow, to take chances, to take risks, set vision. You just talked about integrity. We stick with our people, with our customers, with our drivers. We want to make an investment in that relationship, and we're going to be honest, we're going to be fair, and we're going to have integrity in the way we deal with them, and then service as well, and making sure that we are doing everything we can to provide that excellent service to meet people's needs. The one thing that I do want to touch on here that I think is kind of undergirding all of that is that element of faith too. We're a family company, we're a Christian company, and we try to lead and provide our business with those Christian values. Bev, this came to me as you were talking about the 2 parts of the business early on that were kind of holding each other up. And I know that I've seen just sort of the hand of God kind of holding up Autumn as time has gone by. Do either of you have a thought on that? I didn't prep you with that question.
No. That's been at our core for, I can't say it was at the very, very beginning, but we have, even in real lean times, been so thankful to God for providing for us, whether it's a little bit or a lot or nothing, basically. We're still thankful. And we made a commitment as a company, well, personally, but as a company, that we would give back every year a certain portion of any of our gifts that He's given us. So we've done that even in years where we haven't made very much. We had made that commitment, and that probably gives me and us more joy than anything, is to be able to give back to the one who's given us so much.
Well, generosity isn't on the printed value on the wall, but it's something that I know I've experienced at this company, and I've seen as we try to take care of our drivers and do outreaches for Valley Outreach over in Stillwater. Lake Elmo is a place that we want to give back to, and many other places that you guys give back to. So I have a lot of pride in being a part of this company. I think there's a lot of really cool things going on here. Well, we're about probably should wrap up here. I'm curious, though, 2 things. One for Julie and then one for both of you. Julie, you're the CEO now. You've sat in every chair in the company. Is there anything that you'd kind of like to say about where you see Autumn going in the next 5, 10, 43 years?
I don't think I'll be working here in another 43 years. But and I say this half joking and half God's honest truth, the momentum that this company has doesn't need me in the day-to-day anymore. The CEO role is, I've been at it 7.5 years. And when I started, I had a notion of what I thought that meant. And that meant still having my hand in the day-to-day. But the handoff to the entire ops team and everybody in this building to take it and go with it, just like we've been talking about, I just got to get out of the way. That's how I look at it. So I laugh a little bit about that, but it's the truth. The more I can get out of the way and let people lead, the more successful we're going to be. And the vision of the people here that have their boots on the ground, they're doing the work, they own the relationships. If all I have to do is come in and schedule Founders Day lunch, I'm all right with that. If you would have asked me that same question 7.5 years ago, I would have said, no, I got to have my hand on everything. I gotta keep control of it, and letting go of the day-to-day it's been a testament to Autumn's success in the last 5, 6, 7 years for sure, watching everybody else take it to where they see it going as well.
Bev, you must have done a pretty good job at home, because we mentioned
think I
Jill
did.
being a great cook. But Julie, you're a pretty darn good cook too. So if you're going to take your hands off the wheel, you can put them on the stove a little bit more, and you can bring in some stuff too here. I don't mind.
No
I don't mind
problem.
extra snacks.
No problem.
At the office.
Well, that's another thing. Lowell he lived for food. He loved to cook for people. So I'm glad that one is still alive and well here.
It definitely is. I do remember Lowell having his stash of candy bars in the kitchen. And every lunch break, he might wander in and sit down at your table. And what was it? What was his favorite candy bar?
Well, he loves Snickers the most, I think.
Yeah.
Salted nut roll, maybe second.
I think that's the one I was
Yeah.
thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can just see him sitting at the table eating a candy bar, just hanging out with his people,
Yep.
right? Well, what would you guys say, kind of to wrap it up, if we were to bring all the staff in here, if we were able to get all of our 130 owner-operator partners together, is there anything that either of you would like to share with them?
Thanks for being part of the family, and just really emphasize their own family and making things right at home as well, because they're out for so long at a time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would also say, especially to a lot of the owner operators over the years, if we could bring them all back, thanks for the education. Because I got 28 years of education from guys and gals on the road, not having a dad that drove a truck growing up like you did, right? My dad was a business-minded entrepreneur, chance taker, but he wasn't going up and down the road. And I learned everything I think that I know about trucking from the guys and gals on the road, and from the people here in the office that I had for mentors, and the people doing it today. Brand new, fresh ideas. So I would say thanks for the education. And I think you said it great, Mom. Just thanks for being part of the family.
You're all looking at me. I'm supposed to add to this now. I like the thanks for the education, because thanks for surprising me is what I would say, because when I was looking at taking this job, thinking back, I had a lot of people say, what the HE double hockey sticks are you thinking? You're going to get into trucking. There's so many unknowns, and you have all these kind of ideas about it beforehand, and then you get into it, and the drivers are the nicest people, most resilient people I've ever met in my life. And I have a whole new respect. And so, yeah, I would also say thank you for the education, and thanks for taking it easy on me being a newbie recruiter.
Well, it's fun to sit together and talk and have someone really new to the company here with us, and then the two of you who have grown it up. No,
Did you call my mom old?
I definitely don't think I said that.
He looked at me when he was thinking that.
Chad, if we could cut that. I just want to thank you all for being here and going through the story. You know, I'm privileged to have been a part of almost a decade in September, one of 4. decades that Autumn has been around, and I know that you've impacted a lot of lives. I can imagine Lowell, we have his picture with us in the room today, but just being so happy about this company and all the ways it has grown and all the lives it's impacted. It really has changed people's lives as they talk to us about being an owner operator and wanting to own a truck and being able to do things for their family that they were never able to do until they came to Autumn. And man, that's just got to make your hearts want to explode as CEO and owner. Who would have thought 43 years ago that we'd be here today doing a podcast? Can you believe that,
It's my
Bev?
very first one, and hopefully my last.
Well, you guys did great. Just want to say thanks. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Everybody, drive safe and have a great day.